Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I will be piloting the Greenskins, led by a lovely orc war boss over here on his majestic pig that he likes to ride. So it should be a lot of fun. My opponent over here will be piloting the Empire, so always a classical matchup, and here we go. So as far as my army composition goes, I have a front line of goblins. I feel like they're very, very cost effective, and I've been experimenting with them a lot lately. And they do have that shielded capacity as well as being very expendable. So they're very good at absorbing that initial Empire shock that a lot of their ranged units like crossbows, handgunners, and even the skirmishers can bring. So I feel like goblins are a great option to answer that. Behind them, I have my shock troops. These are the black orcs. Once the goblins take the initial beatdown, the black orcs essentially plug up, essentially serve as band-aids and plug in as needed. So again, very, very big fan of black orcs. They have 110 armor, which is quite substantial. Great leadership and pretty solid combat stats across the board, including armor piercing. In the back line here, I have an orc war boss, and then I have an orc shaman. So the big wah, I'm a big fan of it. I feel like it has a good missile ability, really good unit buffs, and definitely brings a lot of fun stuff to the table. And of course, I have an Arachnarok spider, which I also really like. Not only is it just this huge, massive, powerful unit that can just crack a front line, but also it has poison attacks, which is pretty pertinent against other large, powerful units, even something like greatswords. It's quite good against. So I've become a big fan of those. In the forest here, I have two Night Goblin Archers. I really, really like the Night Goblin Archers because they do have that stealth ability. So they're never really going to be interfered with until the battle starts. So you can get optimal positioning, and psychologically speaking, a lot of people don't really account for them when they're looking at your normal army. So they generally get pretty good position and can do some good sustained damage. And as far as my Vanguard deployment goes, I have two groups of Goblin Wolf Riders back here. So we'll see how these guys pan out. I feel like they're very good against Empire, because Empire tends to advance with the front line and leave its artillery and ranged units fairly vulnerable in the back line. Also, most Empire players I play against are very aggressive with their cavalry, so he'll be swinging around out here and hopefully leaving his back line vulnerable. So for his army composition, he has a general of the Empire with potions, an Empire captain also rocking potions, and again, this is definitely the meta of potions. I feel like a lot of the lords who don't bring potions, with the exception of a few, just aren't up to the cut. You know, they're just not as good as bringing a weaker lord that can carry potions. So as far as his front line goes, he has spearmen with shields, which will be decent against missile attacks, swordsmen, great swords, more great swords, and some swordsmen. He also has a group of handgunners, a group of crossbowmen, a group of spearmen with shields. He actually has outriders with grenade launchers, and personally, I'm really, really not a fan of these. I think they're clunky. I think they're just cost ineffective. Their range is very poor, and you know, more often than not, I see games where they get less than 10 kills. So, just my 2 cents. He has a group of Empire Knights who are quite good. They're anti-infantry, so they will cut through a lot of my troops quite quickly if used correctly. He has a group of Demogryph Knights with halberds, which, you know, at the end of the day can be quite good against my Arachnarok spider if used correctly. And then over here in the forest, he also has a light wizard, I believe, who's coming to probably try and cheese my lord. But thankfully, I do have potions, so it won't be as bad. So without further ado, let the games begin. So we both begin to march on one another, and he actually looks like he's going to be getting really aggressive with his Empire captain. He might even be landing it here, and he actually does go ahead and engage these goblins. And this is something that is specifically new to this patch. If this was the pre-Beastmen patch, players would not do this, because this Empire Captain is landing among Black Orcs, my War Boss, and the Shaman, and he is going to take some serious damage, as you guys can see there. So again, he does have the potion, so even if he does take a ton of damage, he can essentially heal the full very easily. I have my Doom Diver catapults. When you're playing as Greenskins, you always want to have those Doom Divers target down handgunners and all of those type of units, because sometimes, let's say you forget about your Doom Diver catapults, right? And you begin to engage and you have them targeted on the front line. They're not going to be as cost effective, but if you have them targeted on these range units who will probably stop right here, they're just going to keep you getting shot up the entire game. And you can see these crossbowmen are taking some serious, serious damage. And it looks like he's trying to use a magic missile effect, and he does hit the spider doing a little bit of damage. So that's definitely a good idea, and that could potentially chunk it for a lot more HP. So definitely a good call on his part. In the meantime, I do have my Goblin Wolf Riders who are coming out from hiding, and hopefully they'll be able to get a decent flank on some of these range units here. But again, these Doom Diver catapults are making short work of these units. And our front line here is getting ready to engage. Again, it's mostly swordsmen and spearmen against these goblins. And of course, he does have the advantage in terms of troop quality. But once they engage here, my Black Orcs are going to kind of identify it. Once the front line engages, they like to identify, you know, where he's trying to slip through. And those Black Orcs are going to take care of those swordsmen. And the Arachnarok spider will plug up the weakness in the front line and compensate for my goblin's lack of ability. I do cast Ere We Go on these black orcs because I wanted to win this western flank really badly. So I pulled the spider over here, and I also used the black orcs with Ere We Go, and they will cut these swordsmen to pieces with that. He does land his light wizard back here, as well as his empire captain, but I was using the orc war boss as well as the shaman to cover it, and I do get a nice missile attack here and just crush him. And then I believe the war boss, just cuts him off his Pegasus, and that is all she wrote for him. He does keep the light wizard here, but I think the loss of his empire captain, he realized he needed to get out of there. He's continuing to use missile attacks to try and disrupt these, but at this point, it is not the most effective use. In the jungle, he did ambush my Night Goblin archers with his Empire Knights, although I did have a group of goblins over here who seem to tie them up a little bit, so they're not getting the best engage, and I do pull the black orcs to go help out over there. In the meantime, my Goblin Wolf Riders did come from the far forest, and they did get a great flank on those crossbowmen, and also over here, they're not having as good of a time, but they did take care of those handgunners. That's kind of what I was trying to tell you guys, is that when they're out of sight, they're out of mind. Even if they do appear on the minimap, a lot of people just do a topical scan of the map in the beginning and assume that's all they have. So again, Goblin Wolf Riders with Vanguard deployment, very cost effective. They just eliminated these units, and they can chase down great swords. They can chase down essentially anything that's left and just get so much value out of them. Because if they didn't chase these guys down, they could easily come back, start shooting at my Ragnarok Spider and just generating value again. So again, those Goblin Wolf Riders doing an excellent job. As far as this eastern flank here, I did quite well, but unfortunately his Demogryph Knights were able to squeeze through the ranks here, so I reformed my Goblin Knight Archers to have them start shooting. They're not going to do a ton of damage, but the poison effect will be quite good against them, and hopefully can slow them down a little bit. So the Black Orcs go ahead and engage. He did pull in his General of the Empire because most of his melee line had dissipated, and I think he was trying to, change the tides of that with his General of the Empire, but it's a little too late. He does pull in the Empire Knights, which he definitely does not want them in melee with Black Orcs. And as you can see, they're kind of getting enveloped with Goblins, which is great for me because the Empire Knights will not be cost effective against these Goblins. So I'm hoping that he ends up staying there. And as you guys can see, my Goblin Wolf Riders are still in the back line, just chasing down units and just being awesome. Again, even if you don't have an ideal target for these Goblin Wolf Riders, like let's say he didn't have those handgunners and crossbowmen, I could have then used them just to chase down routing units, and that alone makes getting one group of Goblin Wolf Riders worth it, always, in my opinion. Because again, if groups will route at like 40-50% of their total HP or unit capacity, and the Goblin Wolf Riders can eliminate even the strongest of soldiers, so it's quite good. So his General of the Empire did take a lot of damage. The Shaman, the Ragnarok Spider, and all those guys were doing quite well against it. So it's going to flee, and I believe it's out of potions. It had used both of its potions earlier with that initial dive. And I did pull the Orc War Boss as well as some troops over here to help with these Demogryph Knights. And then the Goblin Archers, Night Goblin Archers, were providing pretty good support, poisoning them though so that they would be even less effective against my troops. So definitely playing out well, and as you can see, guys, these Goblin Wolf Riders are cleaning up these troops, and they will chase off these Empire Knights, which is excellent. And both my Goblins are back online, and they're now shooting at the remainder of his troops over here. So as far as the main battle line goes, it looks like the battle is pretty much resolved. I got a ton of value out of those Doom Divers, and again, that Ragnarok Spider also did quite good. I can't tell you guys how good the potion meta is. That Orc War Boss took a beating, and he was able to just stay at full life the whole time and do quite good. And also those Night Goblin Archers are just so awesome. That poison effect, the fact that you can get a really good opening with them is just so valuable. So it was definitely a good game. So as you guys can see, the Goblins are no chumps. I mean, they were fighting swordsmen and spearmen, but again, look at 84 kills on that Goblin. That is seriously impressive. And that was partially because of the buffs from the Orc Shaman. So it really goes to show that with this particular lore of Magic, the Big Waaagh, you can really make these lower tier units much more valuable. And the Black Orcs, again, they did quite well for themselves. They always do. They're just very reliable troops. The Night Goblin Archers didn't rack up a lot of kills, but they were constantly applying poison to a multitude of his very powerful troops. The Goblin Wolf Riders, awesome as always. They essentially, I did some decent damage with the Doom Divers to his ranged units, but then the Wolf Riders were able to come in and just clean shop and put those guys down, so that was great. And I also was able to chase down these Outriders. We didn't get good footage of that in the battle, but the Goblin Wolf Riders were chasing the Outriders and just basically ran them off. And like I'm telling you guys, these things are not good in my opinion. But again, if you guys have had good experiences with them in your games, let me know in the comments. I'd love to discuss it with you guys. And the Doom Divers, obviously MVPs of a lot of these battles. So good game to Garrett. I look forward to seeing you again on Ladder. And I just want to thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate your support. And please like and subscribe. And more content will be coming soon. Have an excellent night, guys. Take care.